Excellent. Nicola, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and of course to Oliver for the invitation to be here with you. It's an absolute pleasure. I also want to thank all of you for allowing me the dispensation of English. Apologies, but thank you for that. I have to tell you, I feel incredibly privileged to be here with this amazing group of enterprise risk leaders. I also absolutely love the approach we're taking, Nicola. Oliver asked me to offer some thoughts on the state of the world of enterprise risk and the potential implications for all of you as you consider it. And then Nicola and I are going to go one-on-one in a discussion, and as I understand it, there's only one rule in the discussion, one rule, and that is no rules. Nicola gets to go anywhere he wants to. Ask any questions he wants to that will be helpful to all of you, and I very much look forward to that. What I want to do with my time here is try to set the stage a little bit for our discussion. I'm going to start, as I set the stage, with two observations, and then 3 insights. And these 3 insights are drawn from a risk survey, enterprise risk survey we've done every 2 years. It's the most comprehensive of its kind, 3,000 C-suite risk leaders and colleagues around the world, 61 countries, so incredibly comprehensive. I'll give you some perspectives and thoughts around that. And I'm going to add a few personal reflections from my conversations with clients around the world for the last year or so. So that sets the stage. Start, 2 observations. And the first observation I want to put forward to you really starts with all of you. And if you look around the room and think about the impact, the leadership in this room, is an absolute truth that what you do every day is becoming increasingly more important, and your role in your firms is becoming increasingly more important. You can make a very clear, straightforward argument that given all that's going on in the world today, the leaders in this room, all of you, have never been more important as a determinant to the success of your firms. Even this morning, just meeting with clients, talking about cyber, climate, supply chain, talent. The right decisions on these topics are going to influence your companies, perhaps no more than any time in history than they will today. So you start with an observation around the importance of this room, and the importance of risk leadership and enterprise risk understanding and leadership as it influences your companies. Observation number 1. Observation number 2 has to do with the risk industry. This is the insurers, the brokers, the health advisors, everyone sort of that brings together the industry. And you ask the question, how are we doing in supporting all of you and what you do every day in support of your leadership? And I will say, again, an observation that there is a battle going on right now, a real battle for relevance, and how the risk industry is coming together and supporting you as you think about what you do every day to lead. It's incredibly meaningful. It's incredibly important. And you ask yourself the question around this idea of relevance. What does relevance really mean? Lots of ways to think about it. I'll offer one measure. Think about risk placed in the world as a percent of GDP. And you ask yourself, how's that evolved over time? It's a measure of relevance. From the 70s to the 90s, risk as a percent of GDP went up. That means as the economy changed, as the economy grew, what was going on in the world from a risk leadership standpoint was becoming more influential. From the 2000s to today, actually every year, risk as a percent of GDP has actually come down. Almost every year. That doesn't mean the industry's not doing a great job supporting you. What it does mean is as the economy has grown and become more complex, risk as a percent of GDP has come down. We've got to break that. We've got to think about that relevance curve and bring together a set of content and insights that help you do what you do. So 2 big observations. What you're doing today is becoming more important than ever before, and the industry around risk is really fighting for relevance to sort of change that curve and be more relevant for you as what you do every day becomes more and more important. So 2 observations to start the discussion. 3 insights, again, drawn from this risk survey, the most comprehensive of its kind, really global, large companies, medium-sized companies, small companies. And the first insight starts with the level of volatility in the world today. It's simply greater today than it's ever been before. And this is fact-driven. And it's driven by two categories of experiences. One is, if you think about the categories of risk out there, population ages, risk goes up. Population moves to the coast, risk goes up. Population connects, risk goes up. The level of risk in the world is going up greater than ever before. But beyond that, the complexity is driven by the connectivity. How these risks interrelate to each other makes a huge difference in what's going on in the world today. And that's what you're experiencing. On the level of risk, just one fact. We all know 2023 was the hottest year ever. Yes? You should also know that insured losses exceeded 110 billion euro. And that's been true for the last 4 years. Never happened before. And that didn't include 250 billion of losses that were uninsured. On connectivity of risk, I want to pick one, cyber. Why do I pick cyber? Cyber is the #1 risk on the risk survey, cutting across all geographies, all size companies, cyber. So what about cyber? What's going on here? Everyone's concerned about the cyber attack, of course, but think about connectivity. Cyber is supply chain. Cyber is reputation. Cyber is employees. By the way, in many respects, employees are a determinant of cyber risk and how they interact and support each other in the context of your organization. Hugely interconnected in terms of what it means. Achieving cyber resilience. This takes a village. It takes the entire firm to come together to actually drive cyber resilience. Cyber is the perfect distributed problem. I mean, I could ask for a show of hands, who's in charge of cyber in your organizations? Would you raise your hand? Who would raise your hand in your organization? Everyone's going to say they're connected, but who's the integrated problem solver that's going to bring the answer? That's why cyber is so insidious, so challenging, so difficult, because it truly is an interconnected risk. And just at the time when you were doing an amazing job pulling together cyber resilience in your own company, think about what goes on outside in the broader supply chain and the risks you had from third parties. So again, level of risk, higher than ever before, connectivity, greater than ever before, which means the complexity that you're encountering, greater than ever before. Insight #1. By the way, you can ask yourself, what drives that before we get to insight #2? And we would observe 4 very specific activities that are really driving this level of increased risk. One is around trade, very clear, the consequences of sustained geopolitical uncertainty. The second is around technology, lots of different categories here, but in particular, the rising impact of AI. Weather, no doubt here, the reflecting the rate of natural catastrophes. And workforce. And this is where the pandemic has had a fundamentally important impact on talent overall. And I will tell you, these profound transitions, undeniable, fact-based, reflected in conversations around the world, these transitions mean that you, back to your role, you've got to both deliver against what's going on today and all the expectations that are up for you, but you've also got to evolve to an area where you can make better decisions on new risks and people challenges. Level of volatility is going up. Insight #2. Insight #2 has to do with what do you do about that? What do you do about that? And there's a cold, hard reality, which is history and what we've done historically, even if we do it better, even if we do it twice as good, ain't going to get it done. There's no way we rely on history and redo what we've done to address what I just described. The next generation of analytics are going to be the building block to solutions. And these analytics aren't looking in the rearview mirror. These are analytics about projecting the future, understanding what's going on. Absolutely critical. Any version of history as I described is just not going to be good enough. Climate conversation I had 3 weeks ago with the CEO of a very large global construction firm. This CEO was way past climate. Absolutely going to be zero carbon, but way past that. He's asking me about how do I help my business survive when 20% of what I got going on right now is impacted by temperature changes and I take my workforce off the field. And this is happening more and more and more. If I don't find a way to think through how I do my version of my RFP and respond to projects, my business is going to deteriorate. What do you do about that? Greg, what do you have to understand future risks as temperatures change? And what does it mean for my business? Should I model the world and go to places with less heat? Should I propose differently in a way that I can win more than anyone else because I have insight? I need to know the answer to that. And that's why next generation analytics are the building block. Absolutely fundamental in terms of what's going on. From our standpoint at Aon, it's why we created Risk Capital. We're taking the insurance analytics around reinsurance and combining them with the insurance analytics around commercial risk. And we've now got 1,000 data scientists, 100 from commercial risk and 900 from reinsurance, coming together to create a level of next generation analytics that will make a difference to the conversation for the construction CEO. Without it, you're relying on history and you're facing off against the risk that I described. So, second insight. What's got to happen is next generation analytics that are going to be the building blocks to drive this forward. Now, third insight. The third insight is, okay, that's terrific. I appreciate that, Greg. I appreciate that risks are going up. I appreciate you've got a level of next generation analytics that are going to help us succeed. But what does that really mean in terms of my solutions? And this insight came through so loud and clear in conversations I've had with clients around the world, certainly through our survey, which is, listen, analytics don't get it done. We've got to come with specific solutions, new solutions, innovative solutions that bring with it new capital. New capital. And if you think about the whole group that makes up the risk industry, all the insurers, these are critically important partners. But the critically important partners we work with every day to support you in the journey I described at the beginning is roughly 4 trillion euro in capital. 4 trillion euro. That's tremendous. But it's not enough when you think about the risks in the world today. And it's really the 4 trillion euro of the insurance world. It's also now adding high net worth, pension, sovereign funds. That's 200 trillion euro. That's the base we're looking at. How do you match capital with risk in a world which is changing with next generation analytics to bring real solutions? Without real solutions, meaningful solutions, and a substantial amount of more capital, there's no way we address cyber and climate and pandemic and supply chain and talent disruption. It's unachievable. But with that, we've got an opportunity. We've got an opportunity to address this curve of relevance that I described at the overall beginning. And I would say from our standpoint, 2 examples of innovations we're proud of, excited about. One is a first of its kind cyber ILS catastrophe bond, which we announced a few weeks ago. It's the first time ever pension fund money is coming in to actually protect against the cyber world. It's a small step. We need many, many more like it. Another is around what we do, parametric bonds. We've almost always done these for insurers, never for commercial companies. We just completed one for a very large tech company to protect against earthquake risk. And you would say, well, that's fantastic. They're going to rebuild if there's an earthquake. No, that's not what it's about. This parametric instrument for this tech company, protecting against an earthquake, if there's an earthquake at a certain level, they intend to put $50,000 US into the accounts of every single one of their employees the day after the earthquake. They're not protecting against the building. They're protecting against talent risk. They want to send a message that's unique and powerful in the context of talent. How cool is that? That's actually broadening the horizon on how you think about what we're trying to accomplish in terms of overall risk leadership. So what I'm trying to highlight for you is, listen, this is a world that is changing, and changing in a way in which your roles become more and more and more important. And we've got to respond in a way that is more powerful, with more capital to support on your behalf. And I would say the stakes have absolutely never been higher. There's no doubt stakes have never been higher. But there's also, with that risk, in our view, massive opportunity. And the opportunity really is for you and for your companies. And if you can differentiate based on the analytics I described, with solutions to bring in new capital to support your businesses. Not just cyber protection for your company, but cyber understanding as you sell your products into the market. This is powerful. And this insight not only defends your house, protects you from all the challenges that are out there, it helps you build your house. It helps you grow in ways you might not have ever been able to grow before. And that just reinforces where we started at the beginning, back to all of you, and reinforces the leadership in this room and why you are so fundamental to the success of your companies, and why I would say we're very excited to help you win on this journey. So with that, to set the stage, a couple of observations, 3 insights, looking forward to the discussion. Nicola, up to you.
Merci beaucoup, Greg. Quelques questions à propos de ce que vous venez de déclarer. A few questions about your statement. You talked about your survey in more than 60 countries, 61 countries. Did you see any differences between the different countries in ranking the risk? You said that cyber is ever #1, but what about climate, for instance? What about social? What about politics? Are they differently ranked in the survey?
So the survey, Nicola, does again, it's very, very global. There are very clearly differences by region. Even down to cities, there are differences you see that show up. There are themes that are similar, though. And the themes come through around cyber, #1 risk. By the way, across every geography in the world. This is very, very unique. Yep. Across every size company, also unique. But climate doesn't show up as pronounced, because climate really is, it shows that the outcomes show up. Supply chain shows up. Talent risk shows up. All these things sort of show up in that manner. So for us, as we've seen it, there are similarities and themes, but it's a very, very tailored outcome, because it's all of you. It's clients, and their businesses are different by geography.
Okay. About climate change, we see now in Europe, and especially in France, the news sounds to my ear very especially, but there is something like a fed up with the rule and what we call écologie punitive, the fact that it's a punishment to transform society, to transform the way of life, etc. Do you feel that around your clients? Is there any sensation or something like a sad mood? We're fed up with this transformation.
I really appreciate you asking the question, because the mood in climate has changed. Yeah. There was just, as you said, an absolute drive around we're going to go carbon free. There was also an assumption that carbon free was economically viable. It was very powerful. All you have to do is invest in carbon free, and your stock price goes up. By the way, I would observe that what does that mean? In order to move the level of assets in the world that were in energy, this is a massive, massive asset base, as you know. Where do you move it? You can't move it too many places that actually you can cover. One place you move it is technology. So just at the time of the fervor, the massive movement in capital from energy to technology happens. What happens? Technology stocks go through the roof. By the way, they just went up, and energy stocks went down. And then we had trauma in the world. And what happened? That reversed. All of a sudden, you realize that climate is not causal. It's maybe correlated, and not always correlated in terms of what's going on. And then you get this sentiment. But I want to emphasize one piece here. Yeah. All of you, you're not connected to this broad-based climate. Everyone is talking about it, zero carbon. You're living every day what it means when the temperature goes up. The example I gave with the construction CEO, I'm not kidding. This CEO is worried for their future. And at 120 degrees, they can't put workers in the field. And that means they're withdrawing them. And that means they're actually losing money on bids. And if they happen over multiple years, which many of them do, they have greater tail risk in their business than they ever thought they had. Well, I don't know whether you call that climate, Nicola, or whatever you call it, that's called business risk. Yeah. Meaningful business risk. And so this is really a driver, and this is where we see it show up every day for our clients.
Okay. A few words about people and talent you talk about. We know that people now are in the company is absolutely a key asset. We see as journalists in all the companies that the link between the guys, people, and the company is now more longer and not so close it was about. Do you think it's a move which has no hand? Do you think that it's inevitable that at the end of the day, people will want to work far away from the company, from the headquarters of the company, and how do you manage that?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about Aon, but really more relevant, this is what we do with clients around the world. It's also back to the connectivity point. Talent risk, how you identify, how you bring in, how you nurture, how you apprentice talent is absolutely critical. And the evolution, the sentiment is real, but it's also real, and our young colleagues who are here, if you've got a mission that matters, if you can do some things that make a difference in the world, you've got great apprenticeship in terms of support, and you evolve from the ideas of just engagement to wellness, and you support financial wellness, mental wellness, health wellness. These things matter, and they matter in a very powerful way. And you ask the question then, what type of work gets that done? And that is the dictate of whether you're remote or not remote. It's not your preference, it's how do we succeed on the mission? And as we see clients do that and deliver on this idea of wellness, we see retention very, very different in terms of the overall environment, and that's true across every geography.
We all of us read stories about the way universities and schools in the US and probably in Great Britain and probably in Europe, step by step, has been impacted by the way the students think about their life. Do you have any fear about the way the universities, the way the students are ready for life?
I would say, listen, for Aon and we're 55,000 colleagues around the world, and certainly for our client discussions, it's remarkable the talent that's out and available. It's remarkable. And not just from university, but from all different sources. We've got an amazing apprenticeship program in which colleagues weren't in university. The talent is incredible. The innovation, the ideas, incredible. It's back to what are we trying to get done? What are we trying to accomplish in the world that's going to make a difference and be meaningful? And what types of resources are you bringing to bear to support these individuals? That ecosystem is alive and well, and there for all of us to sort of embrace in terms of where we are. So it's less about, in our view, the universities. It's much more about the individuals and the opportunity to really drive something that's meaningful. And if you do that, the opportunity to attract talent is extraordinary.
Okay, thank you very much. Great case, very much. It was very, very relevant and interesting to have your view about the way of conducting such a company as Aon and the CEO of the sector. Really very much appreciate, and they very much appreciate. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute joy to be here.